Zapinette in Mexico. Caramba! From the Inkwell of Albert Russo. Chapter 3. These gardens are called Xochimilco in Nahuatl, the tongue of the Aztecs. Now stop laughing at other people's languages, you racist monolingual nitwit. Yeah, I heard you. Chimpanzees eat chocolate with milk. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who is the obese monkey here? After you've gobbled down a Hershey bar, not even chewing it, swallowing a cheeseburger whole before, you're so damn greedy. Unky Berkey rented a nifty-colored boat as narrow as a Venetian gondola, bearing the name Carmencita. Each one of these little boats, called trajineras, have feminine names. I even saw one with Beyonce written on its side. And guess what Bonka came out with? Darling, we can ask to have your name written on a new boat. How would you feel if people started sailing with a Zapinette or a Zaparetta? What do you... Whoa! You'll have to dish out a hell lot of pesos. I stopped there on account that the sentence continued in my head. Stinkingly stingy as you are. During the Aztec period, there was a big lake here. Now it's all canals. This ain't just a playground, 'cause you see boats ridden by ladies, but also by men and teenagers carrying farm produce, which they sell to citizens. You can also buy fresh grilled fish and prawns, from the floating eateries. Do they smell luscious and give you hunger pangs? All kinds of goodies are offered, like nutty biscuits, and of course, chocolate-covered cakes. Many inhabitants of the capital, but tourists too, come here on weekends and spend a few hours, either to party, feasting a wedding or a communion, or just to have fun. Some of them rent a trajinera with mariachis, them small Mexican bands wearing big hats, who play the guitar. When you cross several of them, your ears start to tingle something awful, on account that you can't follow the first tune, suddenly interrupted by another song, and then yet another, and so forth and ding-dong. Among the numerous canals, we chose the one that led to Isla de las Muñecas, which is the island of the dolls, an hour from the Embarcadero. But the ride was so nice, so pleasant, that we didn't see the time pass. The place belonged to Santana Barrera, who, they say, discovered a little girl drowned in the canals. He also found a doll floating nearby, tied it to a tree. He soon began to hear whispers, footsteps, and wails. Obsessed by these mysterious noises, he started to hang more and more dolls all over the island, believing he could appease the spirit of the drowned girl. Barrera died in 2001, and they found his body exactly where the girl drowned 50 years before. I don't know if I can believe that creepy story, but it can make a good horror movie. As we rode nearer to the spot where it all happened, I heard my heart race like it was starting some kind of ghostly marathon. We were surrounded by lush greenery and heard birds twitter louder and louder. Thank goddess we weren't the only ones to be there, 'cause we witnessed something that only Hitchcock, that famous psycho filmmaker, could have invented. Hundreds, nay double and triple, nay thousands of dolls hanging from trees. They seemed to be grinning at us, Some of them missed an arm or a leg, or both. A few hung with only a head and no trunk. It looked more like a weird kind of cemetery than a doll's haven. Nothing compared to that whole floor in New York's Schwartz department store, dedicated to the world's most beautiful and smiley dolls, on account that it was eerily silent. The only sounds you could hear were the stupid twitters of birds, and now and then the croaking of a sick frog. In between, some of our freaked-out Trajinera neighbors were huffing and puffing. Sotto voce. How is that possible? Never mind, you get what I mean. I was even afraid to breathe, let alone achoo, because of a crazy fly that was playing around my nose. Which reminds me of a story my uncle wrote a couple years ago. He can also be funny, sometimes, but not often. Here it is, whether you want to read an aside or no aside. If not, you can sit on your backside. Where else? Well, some of them bonzes in Asia Major can sit on their heads for hours without batting an eye. And in circuses, acrobats can even stand on the wobbling skulls of their partners 300 feet from the ground with no safety net. Try to beat that. Muda at Castle Well. There was a strange noise last night in my quarters as I was reading The Lord of the Floozies. Then I saw the thing, a fat, hairy, greenish fly. "What the hell are you doing in this room?" I hurled. "This is my summer residence. You, human clot. Who gave you the right to come here, usurping my space?" retorted the fly. "Didn't Jim and Lexa tell you I was invited to stay over at the castle?" I said, somewhat miffed. "Here I act as the master of ceremonies, no one else," answered the fly in a strident tone. "Jim and Lexa know about this." "Well, well, well," exclaimed I. "If you stay 1 minute longer in Well, it is hell, I promise you," warned the winged thingamajig. All of a sudden I heard a crash. My bed caved in and I found myself bent in two. The fly was giggling and buzzing like mad. I eventually fell asleep, more in a slumber weary, for my night was fraught with nightmares wherein reigned her flying highness, sneering and grimacing at me like there would be no tomorrow. Yet when I woke up, depressed and bleary-eyed, I found her unlovely lowness on the floor, out of breath, virtually inanimate. I wished it good day, offering it a biscuit crumb for breakfast. It just gave out a muffled whistle. "Sorry, old pal." Your poopedness," I apologized as I held it by the tip of the wing. "And flushed it in the toilet. Adieu, your zilchness," I sighed, bidding it farewell. At the beginning, hunter-gatherers settled here into farming communities with birdie names like Kilkilco, Capilco, and Latilco. They worshipped 16 gods, with Shantico, the goddess of the hearth, and the earth goddess, Xiacotl. But it was Amamitl, god of Xenapus, who was the most important of all. Where was his wifey Amamita? Cooking beans, nursing the babies, or sweeping the floor? Damn machos! Ah, there was one important queen in Xochimilco, all right, on account that she invented special recipes. Of course she couldn't be more than a cook. Thank you for the honor. Like necatoli, chiliotli with chili pepper, esquites, and lapiques. Taste one of them dishes just with the tip of your tongue, and you'll jump out of your skin. It's so hot. Now, what happens if you leave your skin? Do you look like raw beefsteak? The one who invented that expression must have had a bloody nightmare after a terrific indigestion. Actually, many weird expressions of the English language are so far-fetched and outstretched, they can only come out of sick and sex-saturated, twisted minds. Most of the time hallucinating, because what do you make of Sweet Fanny Adams, cat's ass, piss poor, fly by the seat of your pants, all talk and no trousers, or lose all one's marbles? If they weren't sex maniacs, I must be the daughter of Tarzan. Actually, I would be happier to have had him for a father, because even if he only knew animal dialects, he had a pure heart. Instead of that bozo who abandoned my mother and me to go and chase them naked Indian broads wearing chicken bones across their nostrils. I just love them old Mexican names, like that of Aztec Emperor Montezuma Xochimilco. They sound so grandiloquent. Funnily enough, even though it was often more tragic than comical, that word was given to the most highfalutin Spanish noblemen, some of whom were responsible for the murder of thousands of Indians, once they had discovered that the latter kept tons of gold and silver in their king's palaces. Now here are some of Moctezuma's successors. Not all of them were successful, though. Cataltsin, Azcapotzalco, Zelpoyatzin, Izcotl, Apashkiatzin, Ahuizotl, Huitzilpochtli. Ah, so you're tired of reading this list. Too bad. To me, it's like music. Much niftier than your ear-splitting and electro-cuting techno-disco and dance crazes. It was the conquistador Herman Cortes de Monroy y Pizarro Altamirano, bearing later on the title of Marquis of the Valley of Oaxaca, who at the beginning of the 16th century led the expedition that caused the fall of the Aztec Empire, the Mamzer. Trains and coaches hadn't been invented yet. That's why many grandees of yore wore half-a-mile-long names, on account that they wanted their pears and apples, as well as their servants, to never forget how important they were. And if the latter couldn't spell their whole name properly, they would be flogged 100 times for each single name forgotten or mispronounced. Ouch, ouch, yak, yak. Oh, that's a kind of cow in Mongolia. Nothing to do with Mexico. Never you mind. Apachikiatzin was the last king of Xochimilco. I allow you to call him Apple and Chewing Gum, on account that his name is too unkosher for words. He was allowed to rule over his people on condition that he be baptized. So in 1522 he became Don Luis Cortés Cerrón de Alvarado. The Spaniards brought with them an unconscious number of sicknesses which affected the local population, and the epidemics, especially typhoid, killed many poor Indians. Those who survived these plagues were permitted to keep their traditions only if they converted to Christianity. The Spanish conquerors accepted that a Martín de la Cruz publish an Aztec herbal book. It's supposed to be the oldest book on medicine of the American continent. It was even translated into Latin, and the original lies in the Vatican. After independence and the Mexican-American War, Xochimilco became part of Mexico City, F.D. Have you heard of the Mexican Peasant Revolution? Well, you should have, because at the beginning of the 20th century, the brothers Villa and Emiliano Zapata terrorized the whole population. They and their wide-hatted Zapatistas burnt the whole center of Xochimilco, as well as the original palace. In 1914, having won the war against the government, the guerrilleros signed a pact and began to redistribute lands to the peasants. In spite of the fact that Emiliano Zapata got killed in an ambush, his followers kept the power. He became a hero. Caramba! Earlier on, I told you about the creepy island of dolls Unky Berkey and I visited. There's another horror story we heard about this place, but this time I refused to go and meet the ghost of La Llorona, which means the crying lady, on account that her children drowned in some of the canals of Xochimilco. The latter are supposed to be haunted, and if you sail on one of them, you might hear terrifying wails. And what's more, you're bound to fall in some trap and never return again to normal life. This country is full of frightening legends, which the Mexicans believe in. Maybe that's what makes them a bit crazy. As late as 1995, a goat sucker called Chupacabra apparently lurked in dozens of farms, sucking the blood from hundreds of animals. Some farmers claim that they saw a werewolf with vampire fangs. Now, would you believe this? Farmers in Puerto Rico and all across North America swear that they too have met Chupacabra, and that it has wrought havoc among their goats and even their cows. You must be a triple squinter to believe that kind of balderdashi nonsense. Especially that all of this happens in the dead, very